So this is Madeline Lyons interviewing Mahati and Mukkamala in Malden, Massachusetts. And first we would like to know a little background about you, where you're from, where you live now, what you do. Go for it.
Background is I'm Indian. Came to the States when I was 12, 1999. I live in Malden currently, grew up in Woburn, grew up in Burlington, went to school at UMass, currently at Syracuse, and I work in finance.
Where in India are you from?
Hyderabad, so I'm from South India.
Gotcha. And so I would like to get a little background on your elementary school years. So where you went to school, what type of school?
I went to a private school in India. So I think what they call it is English medium private schools. So you basically teach you English at a very young age, to a point. I mean, you learn 3 languages from a young age: Hindi, Telugu, and English. English being your second language,
And Hindi or Telugu?
Hindi being your primary language.
Got it. Okay, and so first of all, what is your favorite childhood game from your time in India?
It was cricket.
Cricket. Could you, I know it's a very complicated game, but try to give a little background on the rules?
Similar to baseball, there's 2 batters at any given point in the game. There are 11 fielders, 1 bowler, and the object of the game is to get the batting team out, get 10 outs. 10 outs is 1 inning. So unlike baseball where it's 3 outs every inning, there's 1 10-out inning, which could take anywhere from 2 hours to 45 minutes depending on how good the bowling team is, and the object of the game is to have the higher score at the end of both teams' 10 outs.
Got it. And do you remember how you learned to play?
I learned to play from my father and friends, and local friends. Everyone plays cricket. That is the only game that's played, and it's played everywhere. It's played in colonies, it's played in streets, it's played in playgrounds, it's played everywhere.
Okay, and is it mostly boys who play the game, or do girls also play?
It's mostly boys who play the game.
Okay.
It's most of the boys that are in a neighborhood come together to play, different age groups. There could be on one street, people usually take a back street and the older kids play on one side of the street, the younger kids play on another side of the street.
Okay, and how old were you when you started playing?
I was probably 7.
7. And people
7 or
play
6.
for the rest of their lives, really?
People can just play as long as they can.
Play
as long
forever.
as they're able to.
And you had told me earlier about how you can really play with anything. It doesn't have to be expensive equipment or anything.
Yeah, so what we used to do before we were allowed to have bats and balls, because we were kids and they didn't want us to get hurt, we would draw, what's wickets, and which is kind of like the strike zone in baseball. We would draw it with the marker on a wall to represent the wickets, and we would play with a legal pad and a bunch of elastics wrapped together as a ball.
So really anyone can play. It's
anyone
not...
can play it at any point. You can play with rocks, you can play with ping pong balls. You can play with all you need is essentially a quote unquote bat, so anything flat that you can hit something with, and a round ball-like object.
Okay, and what would you say the appeal of the game was? Just because anyone could play?
I think the appeal of the game is the only game that you grew up knowing. It's played everywhere. It's part of your DNA almost, where it's all around you 24/7. You can't get away from people playing cricket or people talking about cricket anywhere in India. It's like Brazilian kids growing up with soccer. It's just there, and you can play it from a young age to an older age, and you can play it all the time.
Part of the cultural identity.
Yeah, that's essentially you grow up with it. Your father watched it, your father's father watched it, you watched it, your kid's probably gonna watch it. You played it, your father played it, and the game hasn't changed a lot. And I think one of the things that makes any game fun to share is when the game doesn't change. So that's why baseball is passed down from father to son, because the rules don't change. It's the same rules, the same way you play catch, the same way you play cricket. The rules didn't change from the time your father played to the time you play. So he can give you pointers that, whereas in football or basketball, that's not entirely true. Because the rules change, the ball changes, the different shots, the rim, all those things change in basketball and football, but in baseball and cricket, these things are consistent. So how you swung a bat 30 years ago is still the same way you swing a bat today, and how you swing a cricket bat 40 years ago is still the same way you swing today. So you can bond over it almost. So it connects generations together.
Awesome. That's